I got this little theory, if you will. Stephen A. Smith has actually been cloned. One clone is screaming on First Take, another is recording a podcast about his favorite socks, and a third is on a political talk show explaining why he might run for president. Meanwhile, the real Stephen A. is probably at home, sitting in a dark room playing Candy Crush and picking up a $20+ million paycheck. The streets used to call this hustle culture, but sometimes it looks more like a glitch because somehow this guy has become the center of gravity for the sports world. And because of that, the whole industry is starting to wobble. Look, I respect the grind, but there's a fine line between being the hardest worker in the room and being the guy who plays solitaire during Game 4 of the NBA Finals. I mean, just think, he gets paid millions to provide expert analysis and decided that lining up red X's and black 7s is more compelling than the actual game. That's the loudness trap. Stephen A. doesn't have to watch the games anymore because his job isn't to be right, it's just to be loud. He's created a little situation where a shouting match about a tweet is worth more than a deep dive into defensive schemes. And here's the scary part. ESPN seems to be okay with his ridiculous behavior. Aside from the NBA Finals, on First Take he's increasingly distracted, like checking personal emails during his show. He's found a way to beef with the LeBron James, Alex Ohanian and Serena Williams' husband, and plenty of others. But here's where it gets messy, because Smith done openly admitted on First Take that he's tired. His co-host joked that he's never in the studio. They laughed, but it wasn't really a joke. Charles Barkley tried to warn him too, saying, at some point, people are going to get sick of you. Barkley's advice, less is more. Of course, Stephen A. clapped back and called him a hypocrite, but Barkley had a point, because the quality is slipping. He's done things like praise a defensive coordinator for a great game plan. Meanwhile, that coordinator had been out for weeks with cancer. But Smith didn't know because he was too busy checking his emails during segments live on air. He was quietly removed from NBA Countdown, not fired, but negotiated out. And when you're too expensive for ESPN's own coverage, that's saying something. But instead of slowing down, he's speeding up and full steam ahead for politics. And he ain't just taking it on the side. He's seriously considering running for president in 2028. Not as a joke, but as a real candidate. I have no choice, he told ABC. Elected officials are coming up to me. Billionaires are talking about exploratory committees. He said on a Sirius XM show. He's been polled at 2% in Democratic primary polls. 2% for a sports analyst? Not to mention he's constantly putting himself into terrible situations, such as with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Joy Reid compared him to Django. It was messy as hell and made people ask, when did ESPN's loudest voice become a political lightning rod? But here's the part that nobody talks about, the casualties. When Sirius XM announced Stephen A.'s deal, two hosts, Michelle Beadle and Cody Decker, were fired.
I will never share a set with that person, ever. I'm not a religious person, but I pray for the downfall.
Now, this beef goes back to 2014, when Stephen A. was suspended for some controversial comments regarding the Ray Rice scandal. The internet doesn't forget. ESPN isn't building a brand anymore. They're backing up the donut trucks for a handful of mega personalities and hoping they don't burn out. Pat McAfee, Stephen A., the network lives and dies by them. And if one of them left, they'd be cooked. Here's the real issue. Stephen A. is building his own empire. He's got his podcast network, YouTube channel, 2 Sirius XM shows, political ambitions, and ESPN is funding half of it while getting half of his attention. It's brilliant for him and terrible for us. Sports fans deserve analysts who actually care about the games, who care about the details and actually provide value through their unique perspective. A Boston radio host said it best. You can't be divisive in politics and accepted by a mass sports audience. And that's right. Stephen A. is trying to be everything to everyone and becoming less effective at all of it. But here's the thing. Stephen A. isn't the villain. He's just maximizing opportunity. And honestly, I respect the game. But the problem? ESPN enabled this. They made him untouchable, gave him the money, the platform, and freedom. And now they're dependent on him. If he leaves, what does ESPN have? A couple of other stars and a whole lot of airtime. So yeah, Stephen A. might be ruining sports media, but that's because the system that created him is broken and nobody's willing to fix it.